This is Scituate State of Affairs, discussing town news and local government issues. And on January 25th, 2025, Scituate voters will head to the polls in a unique and historic election. It's an election that involves 9 South Shore communities, all voting on one day to vote on one topic. While this will be new for Scituate voters, what isn't is that one topic: approval of a new school building. The school at hand, South Shore Tech. Its proper name is South Shore Regional Vocational Technical High School, and it's located over in Hanover, just about 10 miles from Scituate. Built in 1962, the school serves a little under 700 students and operates in what best can be described as a college format, and that students take the required high school gen ed classes, but they also have a major, or in this case, a trade. The school offers trades in engineering, electrical, carpentry, cosmetology, and more that they focus on through the school year. South Shore Tech serves 9 communities, Scituate included. You'll see them listed on your screen. You'll also note percentages by each community. That percentage, which is based on the amount of students from each community, dictates the sharehold each district has in the school. In other words, the cost of a new school would be split between the districts at the percentage you see. The percentage for Scituate is 6.23%, which may appear like a small amount. But with this new school building's projected budget of $276.4 million, any percentage can have an impact on taxes. Tom Hickey is the superintendent of South Shore Tech, currently on a lengthy and district-wide press tour, if you will, in regards to this new school.
I think I need world tour T-shirts or something for all the visits that that we're making.
You are making the rounds.
It's necessary. We got to do it.
You and I, about almost 1 year ago, at the end of 2023, you and I first sat down together as this project was really, all the pieces were coming together. When I look back on that interview, I think I may have made a small error in judgment in that I assumed people understood how your school operates. In that, it's certainly a trade school, but I've told people, it's also a high school. When people ask you, South Shore Tech, what is it? How do you describe it?
We do get that question from time to time, Seth. I start by saying we are a public high school. We are obligated to meet all of the same state requirements. We have to ensure that we're meeting the Board of Higher Education requirements for students in order to get into state colleges and universities. But when I drill down a little further, I remind folks that while the core mission is to focus high school age students on the career and technical trade pathways, that kids spend half their time in what you and I would call a traditional high school academic curriculum. So 1 week they have English, math, science, social studies, phys ed, and wellness, and some technical theory in their shop areas. And then on the other week, they do a deep dive for the entire week into their chosen vocational major. So it's a 180-day school year, and it's about the same length of time for the school day, but we just chunk our time differently, putting at least 50% of the time into the vocational major. So yes, people will ask if are you a public school? Is there tuition? And it's good to clarify that we are Scituate's other public high school in all respects, with a certain dosage of how our kids spend their time.
And this is a public high school you have been at since 1994. You started as a
Yes.
history English teacher.
I did.
Eventually becoming superintendent 2011.
Yes.
Here we are, 2024, 30 years after you started.
I had to do the math,
With,
but yeah,
with,
30.
with what may be the biggest project yet, a $276.4 million new school building.
Yeah, the price tags for public construction these days are just, they make you catch your breath.
Why do you need a new school building?
We need a new building for several reasons. The most pragmatic reason is that we're the second oldest regional vocational school in Massachusetts. We're proud of the fact that we have, since 1962, been able to offer our core mission, and it's evolved over time. But I can't make the 1962 part of the building totally go away. We've done a lot of renovations. We've used a lot of our shops to help maintain our building. People are generally very impressed and proud of our building. I wouldn't be embarrassed to show anybody the building. People wouldn't, if they toured our school, you wouldn't see a ceiling tile about to fall on your head. So we've done right by the asset that the voters back in 1960 said, go form a regional vocational school. So it's older. It's an older building, and the useful systems have, they're reaching the point where we're going to have to make serious capital investments. I would rather we make capital investments with state subsidies than making large capital investments totally on our dime. The second reason has to do with the kids. We have increasing demand from our 9 towns, and Scituate is reflective of that demand as we're seeing Scituate's enrollment to our school almost double in the last 4 years. And I see larger 9th grade classes even on the horizon with the current 8th graders that are looking to apply. So the state acknowledged the fact that there is more demand than there is capacity, and we don't like turning kids away. And even the kids that get into our school, Seth, we sometimes have to turn them away from highly desired shops after they go through their exploratory program. So we need a modern facility, doesn't have to be a Taj Mahal, and we need to be able to offer more capacity. People are not going into the trades in the numbers that our local and regional economy need in order to be able to sustain the economy on the South Shore. So we think that the design that we've come up with, and it's been a year and it's been a busy 2024 for us, we think we have a model that meets the moment, that is a good investment for the next 50 years and addresses those core issues. Modern building with the capacity to be able to take more students, and actually, I'll add, to expand programming. We have 12 vocational pathways right now, 12 shops, and in this new design, we're going to add a plumbing program and a veterinary science program. So having 14 programs and more capacity is I think, exactly what our region needs.
And any project like this, I think the 2 big things people want to know is, 1, what does it look like? And then 2, what's it cost? So we'll talk about the designs here in a second, because we've talked about this. I think your biggest obstacle in this is the money, and when it comes down to those taxpayers. So I know that you've done this spiel many times, $276.4 million.
Yes.
Break down the whole, who's paying for what and what it comes down to for taxpayers.
Absolutely. So $276.4 million is what the MSBA would call the total project cost. Fortunately, I'm able to give this a few haircuts, so the actual number at the end will be lower. The first haircut I'll mention is, the good news is that our towns were very supportive of us for 6 or 7 years as we saved money in a stabilization fund for the day when we might get invited in. It took us 6 tries to get invited into the pipeline. But we had saved enough money in stabilization that we were able to fund our own feasibility study. So when we got invited in, the first thing the state says is, you've got to show within X number of days that the towns are going to support your studying the issue. So we had money set aside, which is great. But when the state calculates a total project cost, that 276.4, they include the feasibility study. So I'm happy to say that we can take $2 million, which was the feasibility budget, we can take that off the books because we funded, the town supported us. That was self-funding. Sometimes if you get invited into the pipeline, there may be a town that has to finance the feasibility study. Now that's the beginning of the process. Okay. So that makes it a little bit lower. It doesn't mean that it's less expensive. It's that we're not going to finance that whole number. But much, much more important than that is the fact that the state has earmarked up to $111 million. So your question is, who's paying for what? We paid for a little bit ourselves out of the gate with feasibility. MSBA is going to commit up to $111 million, which included some feasibility money toward the project. So that's if the project goes to plan, a little bit money in case we have to use contingencies. So what I'm telling folks is that the amount at the local level is about $165 million, and I'm able to give that a further haircut because we have some leftover stabilization money, because our feasibility, for those folks that follow building projects, the feasibility is a separate budget. We're coming in a little under budget, and we had additional money saved. So I'm projecting that the local share, from which we will base all the town shares, but the local number is probably going to be closer to $163 million. So you are right to start at the biggest number at the top, and we couldn't even talk about a project like this without a state partnership. So now the question that's worth answering is, how do you divide up that $163 million amongst our 9 towns. And part of the answer to that was the reason that we were at the November 18th special town meeting. And that was, we wanted to ask our communities to change the formula for how we adjust debt share. And Scituate was very supportive of that. We've had 3 other communities also weigh in on that, most recently Whitman Town Meeting, and we have a few more town meetings. So we're basically going to calculate each town's share on a 4-year rolling average of student enrollment, which will adjust based on whatever changes with enrollment. What does it boil down to for the person who by this point in the conversation is sick of all these numbers? Let's get to it. We're working on tax impact information as we are having this interview today, and I'm hoping that by the second week of December, I'll be able to publish something in greater detail. But my initial projections right now would be that if you take the average assessed home in Scituate and we place the borrowing at our highest amount in fiscal 2030, it's probably technically 31, but I'll say fiscal 30, we're looking at somewhere between $100 to $110 per year on that average assessed home. That is based primarily on Scituate's current enrollment and now using this formula, making some projections going forward. What I want to be able to show voters, residents, interested parties very soon is take me from right now, what will be, let's say, fiscal 26, and walk me through that through fiscal 30. Like, how does it scale up? Because one of the first things that town leaders and financial folks have the right to ask is, hey, we know this thing's coming up for a vote, and we'll talk about the vote, I'm sure, in a minute, but when will this roll on? Because we've got competing demands all the time. And it's important for us to say it's going to gradually roll on. Like almost every other building project, you need a little bit of money for design, then you start construction. So the answer is, we'll have a more detailed answer, but I'm ballparking it there at 3 or 4 years out. This building will open in 2028 for the 28-29 school year. And so that's dovetailing with when the bonds would roll on. So it'll take us a little bit longer to flesh this out, but I think people at the end of the day just want to know, where does this fit? Where does it whack me in the pocketbook? And lay that out, and then let's work backwards from that and talk about the pretty pictures and what you're trying to achieve. But people deserve to hear that early in the conversation.
So basically, if it passes, we're saying come 2030, this additional tax money would be on the bills, 100-ish.
Yes, and then if I work backwards from fiscal 30 down to 29 or 28, 27, 26, there would be very small amounts of money in fiscal 26 and 27. In fiscal 28, let's say half of that would show up. Again, I'm being very general here, but it will roll on as additional construction costs roll on, with what I would say is a high watermark. And this includes so many assumptions. What do you think your interest rate's going to be? How do you think you're going to borrow it? One thing I know from talking to all 9 of our towns, and as someone who lives in the district, I live in Hanson, I raised my family in Hanson, kids go through Whitman-Hanson schools, I'm very aware of the local competing demands. The other items that are on town meeting warrants that folks are prioritizing, whether they're educational, public safety, highway, Department of Public Works, whatever it might be. So we fully recognize that there are those competing demands, and that town leaders want to be able to map this out in a very methodical way. And so we want to be a good partner in providing that.
This is the uniqueness to this is that everything you're saying, you're projecting. You're looking ahead, almost like 4 or 6 years. Let's look at the percentages where we are right now. Meaning, Scituate is at 6.23%.
Yes.
When we talk about the percentage of share, how walk us through. That comes down to students. Explain all of that.
Absolutely. So I can say factually that I know what the shares under this rolling average model that I was describing earlier. I know that in the first year of potential borrowing, that 6.2% you described is based on a look back of official enrollments that are already in the can. That's what it will be. The one variable I couldn't tell you a year ago that I can now factor into that number is the fact that we've brought in the town of Marshfield. They've enrolled a 9th grade class, And they're about 5.5% of the school just now with the size of their freshman class. That has allowed me to take that number and make adjustments to the other 8 towns. So that the projection is based on looking back at enrollments and where we think trends are. I think the trends for Scituate are going to be slightly increased because there's an increased demand from the town. So right now we have, the last I checked, we have, I've got 10 kids from Scituate who are seniors. And I have a freshman class from Scituate that's probably in the low 20s. So you see there, so you can see it might be the end of one trend and the start of another. I want to be pragmatic in making projections and assuming that Scituate might end up being a community going forward that is maybe sending 20-something kids a year versus a smaller number that might be closer to a dozen in making those projections. But you're spot on in saying that this is all about projections. Will a town's behavior remain the same? And what I mean by that is I've got 3 types of towns. I have towns that have more applicants than there are available seats, like 2 for every seat, 3 for every seat. I've got communities that historically always under-enroll and they don't use all of their allotted seats. And now I have communities that I'm identifying in the middle, Scituate, Hanover, and with only one data point, the town of Marshfield. Scituate, Hanover, and Marshfield are my communities that in recent years, for Scituate and Hanover, are using almost all of their allotted seats, which is a big change for both Scituate and Hanover, even if I look back 5 or 10 years, where they had fewer seats being used. So this could change on a dime, or it could be a trend. So it is a projection.
And I do think, sort of, from a taxpayer standpoint, you want to make sure that the estimate is correct. And if we look at that numbers, I mean, look, you're going to build a new school building. There's going to be a skyrocket in interest. Is it possible that suddenly Scituate's numbers double and then our percentage share skyrockets?
It absolutely could. And by using a 4-year rolling average, it simply goes to a pay-as-you-go model. It's the idea that if more children from our town use the services, then it should then follow that an increased share of the services should go. But what we did is we made sure we weren't adjusting this annually, because you could have, what if you had a spike out of nowhere? It's one thing to have a spike in the operating costs of our annual budget. That can happen. And I've been to plenty of Scituate advisory committee meetings and select board meetings where some years Scituate could go up 5 students and there's a real spike in the assessment, one that sticks out more than anything else on the warrant. And then there are years where we're actually looking for, it appears as though we're looking for less money, but there are years where the enrollment has dropped. But over a 30-year period, every one of our towns, whatever bucket they fall into, there are fluctuations. But you're right, Seth, that's what this would mean, that it would adjust. But a 4-year average helps to remove some of the volatility. That was our rationale. Like, what if there is a spike? Well, then let's not re-average this based on just a 1-year change. Let's take that increase and kind of massage it into a wider range of years. So it takes out the peaks and the valleys to provide some predictability for what a town's debt share might be.
Well, one more element on that, and then we'll talk designs, is that this vote on the January 25th goes, all 9 districts in their respective communities go to the polls to vote.
Yeah, it's called a special district election. There's never been one of those, but I try to equate it to you're electing a state rep or a state senator. The district yays, the district nays. It's in the aggregate.
And I asked you this, like if this comes back, 3 communities voted down, but 6 say yes, then what? And you said it's not
town specific.
Right.
Our annual budgets are absolutely town specific through town meetings, but this particular election it's just the number of voters, 50% plus 1, would deem the project approved if the yeas prevail.
Got it. All right, enough number talk. Let's talk design, shall we? For those that know your school, you're over there in Hanover. If you drive by, the school's in the front, the athletic fields are in the back. You're flipping everything.
We're flipping everything. So instead of a 120,000 square foot ranch, which is what we currently have, we would end up with a design on our ball fields in the back. It has the architects did a nice job of at a distance, providing a farmhouse theme. We're on a very small site, and so we had to be very economical. So it's a full first floor where you would imagine most of our shops that require high bays and specialized spaces. Our first floor is our multi-purpose auditorium, cafeteria, the typical offices, and most of our shops. Our gymnasium is going to be on the second floor because we just don't have enough space to spread out. Our second floor, which is what they call a partial second floor, is going to be a little more traditional. Gymnasium on the second floor, science labs, classrooms, and a few of our shops that don't require high ceilings: design, visual communications, allied health, and computer infotech. And then on the third floor, which is also it's a partial third floor, there are a few classrooms and our electrical shop, which is on the third floor because they're a shop that requires a high ceiling, but we just ran out of space on the first floor, in part because as Scituate does, we own our own buses, and so we just needed to account for proper parking space and other areas. So yeah, the design team did a good job to say, put that on the third floor, give them the space that they need. So that's essentially the design. It's going to be more compact than what someone would see right now driving by on Webster Street on 123. But you're right. Where the current school is now is roughly where some of the parking and ball fields would be. But the ball fields end up in the front, closer to Webster Street.
If approved, talk about the process of how you're going to keep school rolling while you're building a new building.
Oh, we actually have a very, Suffolk Construction, which would be our construction management team that oversees the work if we get the project. Yeah. They went into great detail, and we found it was very helpful for me to see their advanced planning. One of the first things they would do is I'm imagining that the class of 2026 could probably graduate on our football field, and then soon thereafter they would begin by securing the construction site in the back, creating a means of egress for construction materials. And then we would enter in a 24-ish month construction phase. We'll be a fully occupied building. Nothing would stop as a result of this work. The shops will be running, the classrooms are running. Parking will be a hot mess, and we'll be the away team on our outdoor sports. So yeah, we're going to have to make those sacrifices. But you don't build, there are no modular classrooms for the carpentry shop. So that is one of the reasons that when we priced out other options, you can't add, it's really tough to add reno, a fully occupied building. You'd have to stretch out the number of years. And so as normal as it can be, I have said to people, if we can get through COVID pandemic and teaching kids, we will get through a school construction project, especially since the construction is not happening to the building that we'll be in. It'll be on the ball fields in the back. So they've got a clear map of how traffic flow, parent pickup, the comings and goings of construction vehicles from 2026 through 28 will unfold. I feel very good about that. And again, if all goes to plan, we would ribbon cut for the 28-29 school year.
Wow. I want to wrap this up and go back to our 2023 interview you and I did. And at that time I said to you, your timing of this project, at least here in Scituate, was awful. We approved a new elementary school,
yes,
we approved a water
yes.
treatment plant, we had additional funding for that water treatment plant. Looking forward to January 25th, and you have all these other districts as well, how are you feeling?
Well, with 9 towns, you can imagine that there is never a good time. I can very easily say, if I had my choice, I would have picked us to go in the first year we applied. But that's hoping for a better yesterday. You can't do that. What I hear is this: vocational education is extremely important to residents of our district. They want teenagers who want that career path to have a facility that meets the moment with the best technology and the space and the capacity to allow families to choose this option. I hear no exceptions to that in any community I go to, whether that's a community that has just approved an elementary school, or in Whitman, Whitman has just approved a middle school, or there are other competing capital projects. So there is no daylight between our passion for voc ed and I think where the residents are. I think in some communities it's going to be difficult. I am hopeful that when we can show people that if we for some reason don't rally around this model, the plan B is going to be something that people will maybe feel like, ooh, because plan B will end up being no state subsidy, no state aid. Similar conversations I'm sure have happened in many other communities. If we start renovating a 1962-ish building, you're not going to take all the 1962 out of it. You're going to invest a lot of money, and we're not adding new programs. We're probably going to have to reduce the enrollment, and we would probably have to chip away at it over several years. And what I've learned a lot through this process, but I've certainly learned how easy it is to see cost escalation on construction projects at 5 or 6% a year go up. So when I'm looking at trying to be a good steward of the taxpayers' dollars, and I look at Plan A, new 900, 2 new programs, 24-month construction, maybe I'm at 163. I'm probably at about 140 if what I end up doing is trying to renovate and bring up to code the existing building we have. And the delta between the two, using those rough numbers, I think people, nobody wants their taxes to go up for anything. People do want to see the value, and if their taxes are going to go up, show me that it's the best value for the dollar. That's the conversation we'll be having with voters. I think people will see that on a pragmatic level. But because we don't educate the majority of kids in any our 9 communities, it's our job, it's my job to make sure we're putting this information out there. And having partners like yourselves and Scituate TV to convey this information to all residents is extremely helpful, because we want to use whatever forms of media there are. At the end of this whole process, if someone says, hey, was there an election or something, that on that Saturday in January? What the heck's going on? I would like to keep that number to a minimum.
Good luck.
And wherever folks land on this, at least we've done our best to put the information out there. Scituate is proud of South Shore Tech. Yeah. Scituate will be proud of the next chapter, the next 50-year investment. They formed this school, and I'm hopeful that they'll see the benefit of this. And it's the least worst time to do it. I can't. Other than that, I don't know what else we could have done.
Actually, on the vote day, because you got these 9 towns,
yeah.
Where are you going to be?
Yeah, where will I be? So I have to vote in Hanson. I think I'll be doing that at 9:01 a.m. Yeah. and otherwise, I haven't planned that out yet.
I'm interested to hear about that.
Oh my
All
goodness.
right, listen, people are going to have probably questions or anything. Where do they get more information?
So at a kind of an anonymous level, they can check out our website, southshoretechproject.com. At a more personal level, they can email me, thickey@ssvotech.org. Or they can call me directly at 781-7664-002. I'd love to talk to folks who want to get more information, get into the numbers, get into the design, explain this whole special district election thing again. Between now and January 25th, want to be fully available for folks.
Superintendent Hickey, always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you, sir.
And remember, folks, that vote is on January 25th, 2025. Here in Scituate, it happens in that Scituate High School gym. Make sure to take part in this unique and historic election.